Welcome to an eye-opening exploration of one of the most talked-about marketing campaigns in recent memory. Today, we're diving deep into American Eagle's provocative jeans campaign and what it teaches us about the power of strategic controversy in marketing. In our hyper-connected digital world, cutting through the noise requires more than just great products. It demands bold, conversation-starting campaigns that capture attention and drive engagement. But here's the crucial question. How do you harness controversy to amplify your reach without alienating your core audience? Using American Eagle's recent campaign as our case study, we'll examine the psychology behind why controversy works, when it's appropriate to push boundaries, and most importantly, how to execute bold campaigns that generate real business results. By the end of this presentation, you'll have a complete playbook for incorporating strategic controversy into your marketing mix, safely and effectively. Let's explore how the right kind of controversy can transform your brand from background noise into the center of cultural conversation. Why controversy works in marketing. To understand how to leverage controversy effectively, we first need to understand why it's so powerful in the first place. There are three fundamental reasons why controversial campaigns consistently outperform safe, traditional marketing approaches. First, emotional triggers. Controversial campaigns provoke strong emotional responses that translate directly into increased engagement. When people feel something deeply, whether it's excitement, surprise, or even mild offense, they feel compelled to share, debate, and discuss. This emotional engagement extends your message far beyond your core audience, reaching people who might never have encountered your brand otherwise. Second, there's the algorithmic advantage. Content that generates high engagement rates ranks higher on social media algorithms. When news outlets pick up your story or influencers weigh in with their opinions, your message spreads organically across platforms without requiring additional advertising spend. The algorithms actually reward controversy because it drives the engagement metrics that platforms crave. Third, cultural resonance. People are inherently drawn to conversations that challenge societal norms or address taboo topics. Brands brave enough to tackle these subjects can anchor themselves in the cultural zeitgeist, becoming part of larger social discussions that extend far beyond their products or services. American Eagle's provocative jeans campaign demonstrated all three elements perfectly, sparking intense conversations across social platforms, earning extensive media coverage, and positioning the brand within ongoing cultural discussions about self-expression and individuality. The golden rule: stay true to your brand values. Before we dive into tactical strategies, let's establish the most critical principle of controversial marketing. Before jumping into any controversial approach, you must ask yourself one fundamental question. Does this campaign authentically reflect our brand's personality and values? This isn't just about staying on brand. It's about survival. American Eagle's campaign worked precisely because it aligned with their established brand identity of promoting individuality, youth culture, and breaking traditional molds. The controversy felt authentic rather than manufactured, which made all the difference in how audiences received it. When brands stray too far from their core identity, audiences notice immediately, and not in a good way. Misaligned campaigns appear disingenuous, designed purely for shock value, and they risk both credibility and customer loyalty. We've all seen brands attempt controversy that felt forced or inauthentic, and the backlash is often swift and severe. The key is focusing on creating messaging that stretches boundaries but remains firmly tied to your brand's mission. A consistent, authentic voice ensures that those who engage with your campaign align with your vision. Remember, controversy should amplify who you already are, not transform you into something you're not. This principle of authenticity will guide every decision we discuss in the remaining strategies. Case study: the American Eagle Jeans campaign. Now let's examine our central case study in detail. American Eagle's recent jeans campaign sparked intense online debate by challenging conventional fashion norms through bold, creative choices and provocative messaging. The campaign featured diverse models in striking poses wearing their signature denim. But what made it controversial wasn't just the imagery. It was the deliberate departure from traditional fashion advertising conventions. The creative direction pushed boundaries in ways that felt both unexpected and purposeful. The controversy elements included bold creative direction that clearly departed from traditional fashion advertising standards. The imagery pushed boundaries of conventional marketing while maintaining artistic integrity. Most importantly, the messaging emphasized individual expression over conformity, directly challenging societal expectations about how fashion should be presented. The results speak for themselves. The campaign generated massive social media engagement across all platforms, earned mainstream media coverage from major outlets, and delivered significant increases in brand awareness metrics. Most crucially, it demonstrated how controlled controversy can deliver measurable marketing impact that translates into real business value. What made this campaign particularly effective was how it balanced provocation with purpose. It wasn't controversial just for attention, but to reinforce American Eagle's position as a brand that champions authentic self-expression. Start with a clear purpose. Every successful controversial campaign begins with crystal clear strategic objectives. Without this foundation, you risk creating controversy that fails to serve your marketing goals, wasting resources and potentially damaging your brand reputation. Consider these 5 primary purposes for controversial campaigns. First, visibility, breaking through the noise in crowded markets. Second, issue awareness, bringing attention to causes or topics you care about. Third, brand repositioning, shifting how audiences perceive your company. Fourth, product launch amplification, generating buzz for new offerings. And fifth, cultural conversation entry, inserting your brand into larger societal discussions. Every controversial campaign should tie back directly to one or more of these clear business goals. Ask yourself, are you trying to shake up outdated ideas, like inclusivity in fashion? Or are you bringing attention to a specific product feature that competitors ignore? This clarity prevents aimless risks and ensures your bold approach serves a strategic purpose. American Eagle's campaign wasn't controversial for controversy's sake. It strategically highlighted their denim products while reinforcing their brand position as champions of youth self-expression. This dual purpose ensured the campaign generated not just conversation but conversion. The controversy drove awareness, but the clear connection to their products and values drove sales. Remember, purpose-driven controversy resonates more deeply with audiences because people can sense the authenticity behind your message. Know your audience deeply. Understanding your audience isn't just helpful for controversial campaigns, it's absolutely essential. You need to know not just who your customers are, but how they think, what they value, and how they're likely to react to boundary-pushing content. Follow this 4-step process. First, conduct thorough demographic and psychographic analysis of your target audience. Go beyond basic age and gender data to understand their values, aspirations, and pain points. Second, segment your audience to identify which groups will respond positively versus negatively to controversy. Not all of your customers will react the same way. Third, Evaluate the potential gains against possible alienation of certain customer groups. This is a critical risk-benefit analysis. Fourth, craft messaging that resonates specifically with your most receptive segments while minimizing damage with others. If you're marketing to progressive millennials, campaigns celebrating individuality and challenging norms might resonate strongly. However, if your audience skews more traditional or conservative, you need to weigh the risks much more carefully. The key is understanding these dynamics before you launch, not discovering them afterward. American Eagle understood that their primary demographic, Gen Z and younger millennials, values authenticity and self-expression above conformity. This deep audience knowledge allowed them to push boundaries with confidence that their core customers would respond positively, even if more conservative observers objected. They were willing to accept criticism from people who weren't their target customers anyway. Craft a strong narrative. Here's where many controversial campaigns fail. They create shock without substance. Controversy without a meaningful message won't get you far. Your campaign must tell a compelling story that evokes emotions, but also delivers a meaningful takeaway. Focus on creating dialogue rather than shock alone. Every strong controversial narrative needs 4 key elements. First, a central theme. What's the core message behind your controversial approach? Second, clear character or brand positioning. How does your brand stand within the narrative you're creating? Third, identifiable conflict. What tension or cultural conversation are you addressing? And fourth, meaningful resolution. What perspective or solution does your brand offer to the conversation? Use your social channels strategically to own the narrative. Share responses from supporters, provide behind-the-scenes insights into your creative process, or clearly state your stance when misconceptions arise about your intentions. This prevents others from controlling your story or misrepresenting your message. American Eagle's narrative wasn't simply, "Look at these provocative jeans ads." Instead, it told a compelling story about young people claiming their right to self-expression through fashion, positioning the brand as an enabler of authentic identity rather than just another clothing retailer. This narrative depth transformed what could have been shallow shock value into meaningful cultural commentary. Remember, people share stories, not just images. Give them a story worth telling. Prepare for the backlash. Let's address the elephant in the room. Controversy inevitably generates backlash. The statistics are sobering but important to understand. 67% of controversial campaigns face some form of public backlash, regardless of careful planning. The critical response window is typically 48 hours. That's when most negative reactions emerge and require immediate management. However, here's the encouraging news. Brands that respond thoughtfully to criticism often see 3 times higher overall engagement than those who ignore it. Create a comprehensive response playbook before you launch. First, monitor reactions using social listening tools to catch early responses and identify patterns in the feedback. Second, filter feedback by distinguishing between constructive criticism and trolling. Prioritize meaningful engagement over inflammatory comments. Third, respond appropriately by acknowledging valid concerns while maintaining your brand position, showing accountability without abandoning your core message. Fourth, adapt when necessary by being willing to adjust campaign elements if criticism reveals unintended harmful impacts. If critics accuse your campaign of overstepping boundaries, acknowledge their perspective while standing firmly by your values. Showing empathy without compromising your principles can transform detractors into reluctant admirers, or at least neutralize their opposition. The key is responding thoughtfully rather than defensively. Remember, how you handle backlash often matters more than the initial controversy itself. Capitalize on the attention-creating controversy is just the beginning. The real skill lies in converting that attention into meaningful business action. Many brands generate buzz, but fail to capitalize on the momentum, wasting the opportunity that controversy creates. Focus on three key areas. First, extend the conversation by sharing user-generated content, responding actively to comments, and creating follow-up content that builds on the initial buzz. Keep the momentum going without simply rehashing the same controversial elements. Second, provide clear pathways for engagement by making it easy for new audiences to connect with your brand through dedicated landing pages or clear calls to action that guide them to take the next step. Don't waste all that attention without a solid conversion strategy. Third, measure beyond superficial buzz by tracking not just engagement metrics but also brand sentiment shifts, new customer acquisition, and actual sales impact to quantify the controversy's true business value. American Eagle masterfully capitalized on their campaign's buzz by featuring the controversial jeans prominently on their website, creating special as seen in our campaign collections that made it easy for interested customers to purchase, and developing follow-up content that continued the narrative of self-expression without requiring additional controversy. They turned conversation into commerce. The goal isn't just to be talked about, it's to be bought from. Make sure your controversy strategy includes clear paths to conversion. The Controversy Compass: Finding Your North Star. As we conclude, let's establish your guiding principles for navigating controversial marketing successfully. Successful controversy in marketing isn't about being provocative for provocation's sake. It's about finding cultural conversations that authentically align with your values, crafting campaigns that push boundaries with clear purpose, and engaging genuinely with your audience, even through inevitable backlash. When executed thoughtfully, jumping into cultural conversations can differentiate your brand in a crowded landscape and create deeper, more meaningful connections with your audience. American Eagle's campaign demonstrates that bold doesn't have to mean brash. Controversy can be strategic, purposeful, and ultimately profitable. Here are your key takeaways. First, align controversy with authentic brand values. Never stray too far from who you really are. Second, start with clear strategic objectives. Know exactly what you're trying to achieve. Third, know your audience deeply before pushing any boundaries. Understand how they'll react before you act. Fourth, craft meaningful narratives, not just shock value. Give people something substantial to discuss. Fifth, prepare for and strategically manage backlash. Have a plan for negative responses. And sixth, convert controversy-driven attention into meaningful business results. Turn buzz into revenue. Remember, the most powerful controversial campaigns don't just generate conversation. They generate customers, loyalty, and lasting brand value. Use these strategies wisely, and you'll discover that the right kind of controversy isn't risky, it's revolutionary. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of strategic controversy in marketing. Now go create campaigns that matter, that resonate, and that drive real results for your business.